For the first time ever, Pokemon Legends Arceus gives us 3 starter choices spread out from different Pokemon regions: Rowlet, Cyndaquil, and Oshawott. But which starter choice is the best for the Hisui region? Let's break it down. Yo, whoa, what is going on YouTube? It's your boy Dan, aka A-Drive. I'm bringing you guys a brand new video today, and today we are diving into the world of Pokemon Legends Arceus and the starter selection for the brand new game. And I'm gonna break down the pros and cons for each of the starter Pokemon: Rowlet, Cyndaquil, and Oshawott. And of course, this goes without saying, but there are gonna be some spoilers in this video, but get yourselves ready. If you've been on the fence about which starter to choose, and you're not sure which form you want, or what you wanna rock with, or what your party is, I've got this incredible video for you guys. And if you guys do enjoy it, please take a second, hit that like button down below, and make sure you guys subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. This is just a preview of the amazing content we're gonna have on the channel for Pokemon Legends Arceus, so please take a second and just subscribe. You don't wanna miss out. I think you guys are really gonna enjoy this video. A lot went into it, and I've had a lot of fun playing the game myself. Like I said, I've been lucky enough to dive in a little early, so I've got some pretty good insight, and I can break down exactly which Pokemon you should choose for your team based on a handful of different factors. So let's not waste any time. Let's break it all down. All right, so the way I'm gonna do this video is I'm gonna take a look at each of the starter Pokemon separately, and then we're gonna come back at the end and kind of summarize. So we'll start off with Decidueye, the grass and fighting type Pokemon. Now, for those who don't know, Rowlet gets a new evolved form as Decidueye, which does evolve into grass and fighting type. And I'm gonna be strictly talking about how this Pokemon functions in the game, and then the potential pairs that you can put with it. So some of the pros for Decidueye: it has Leaf Blade and Triple Arrows, its signature move. It gets Aura Sphere, Leaf Storm, and Air Slash. There's also some move tutor options here, but the bread and butter is gonna be that Triple Arrows into Leaf Blade combination, which increases your critical hit rate, lowers the defenses, and deals massive amounts of damage. So you have dual stab with Triple Arrows and Leaf Blade. It's a really good combination to get a lot of critical hits, which can be good against opposing Pokemon that set up their defenses or just dealing a ton of damage. It's got pretty good physical attack, but it has a very average special attack at 95, which is still usable, especially with high base power moves like Aura Sphere and Leaf Storm, but ultimately you're going to want to utilize that physical attack stack with Decidueye. Overall, Decidueye's bulk is nothing to be super excited about, and it has a handful of weaknesses like flying types and psychic types, ice and fire types, which are pretty common around the Hisui region. So this is primarily a Pokemon that you want to be focusing on the physical side, but it is a bit naturally bulkier than some of the other Pokemon. And if you compare it with some really good defensive resist to flying and psychic, as I mentioned before, it can be a really powerful Pokemon in your team. Now, I think it's really important when we talk about these starters, we talk about the Pokemon that most people are going to want to get in this game, in the Hisui region, the new Pokemon. So I've actually created a list here of the Pokemon that pair the best, the Pokemon that pair decently well, and then the Pokemon that pair the worst with each of these starters. So looking at Decidueye, I think Decidueye pairs really, really well with Hisui and Arcanine, Overquill, the new Quillfish evolution, Basculegion, Zoroark, Hisui and Braviary, Weirdeer, Goodra, and Cleaver. The reason why I chose those Pokemon are simply based on type resistances and offensive stats. I think there's a lot to be said about some of these Pokemon and how they pair very well. Something like Arcanine can resist those ice type moves aimed at Decidueye, and it can also resist those flying type moves, but also deal a lot of damage. And obviously you can kind of visualize how Decidueye can deal with the ground typings and the water typings that would threaten Arcanine. So that's kind of the logic here, right? And some of them do share some weaknesses, right? It's not perfect, but I think it's a really good outline, both offensively and defensively, of Pokemon that are new to the Hisui region that you may want to pair with your Decidueye. In terms of Pokemon that pair just okay, I think Avalugg kind of fits into that bucket. It's a rock and ice typing, and while Avalugg in general isn't going to pair with much from a defensive typing, offensively it has some value there, and it's a really, really powerful physically defensive Pokemon. So again, being able to deal with those ice types really well, and also being able to deal with those flying types really well, makes Avalugg an okay pair. When we look at Pokemon that don't really pair well with Decidueye, I think we're looking at Electrode, Sneasler, and Ursaluna. Ursaluna obviously is a ground type Pokemon, so it's not going to want to hit those flying types. It has that weakness to ice typing, so really not a super good fit there. Sneasler weak to psychic and flying types. Electrode has that weakness to ice types. Doesn't really have a lot else going for it from an offensive perspective. It's just really fast, so I don't really feel like that's a super good pair. And then when we look at the last thing I'm going to break down here, Decidueye is very good against a handful of the different noble Pokemon. I'm not going to spoil what the nobles are in the game, but I'll tell you that Decidueye matches up really well against noble number 2, noble number 3, noble number 4, and noble number 5. So out of the 5 noble Pokemon that you're going to take on, which are essentially the gyms in this game, right? 4 of the 5 Decidueye is a pretty good matchup on. So far Decidueye is looking like a pretty good choice. Next, we're gonna take a look at Typhlosion, which is the evolved form of Cyndaquil, and it becomes a fire and ghost type in this game. Typhlosion has a really cool move pool with its signature move Infernal Parade, which is essentially like a ghost type hex. It's a little stronger, deals double damage if they're status. It gets Shadow Ball, Flamethrower. It can learn moves like Overheat, but aside from that, it has a relatively limited move pool from what I've seen. It's really good if you pair it with something that can spread status. I don't believe Will-O-Wisp is in the game, so it doesn't seem, from what I can tell, that Typhlosion has a way to spread status itself and then take advantage of that with Infernal Parade. So it leaves it a little bit to be desired. And realistically, Typhlosion is a very good special attacker. It has 119 special attack, which is very strong. It has a solid speed stat at 95, but it's really frail and you're not gonna use your physical attack stat. So even though I'm pretty sure it gets like the elemental punches, your physical attack stat is so low, it's really not worth using. Ghost and Fire is a really good offensive typing, so you'll probably want to stick to that. When we look at Pokemon that it pairs really well with, I think Electrode, Sneasler, and Ursaluna fit the kind of coin here. Ursaluna being a ground type and being a normal type allows it to deal with those potential ghost type moves coming in, and obviously it can deal massive damage to Pokemon that would threaten Typhlosion, like rock type Pokemon. And then you've also got things like Sneasler, which is poison, and obviously fighting type, which can deal with those dark type Pokemon really well. And then you've got Electrode, which is grass and electric, and you can see clearly it's really good against water types and things of that nature. In terms of things that it pairs okay with, Overquill is something to mention. They both have a ground weakness, but other than that, Overquill is pretty good because it only has one weakness, and offensively is really strong with its dark type moves. I think Zoroark is a really good pair. Weirdeer, Avalugg, and Goodra. I think all of those Pokemon really have something going for them if you're gonna pair them with Typhlosion. They're all solid picks. In terms of Pokemon that don't pair really well with Typhlosion, I think you gotta consider Arcanine, right? They share a ton of weaknesses. Rock, ground, there's just so many. Yes, there's the fighting resist or immunity that Typhlosion offers, but Arcanine really doesn't pair super well there. Water is a big one. Basculegion, sharing that ghost typing makes it tough. Zoroark kind of gets away with it because it only has the dark weakness, but Basculegion really doesn't, so I wouldn't really recommend that. Braviary, again, you've got that rock weakness, which is kind of tough, and you obviously have the dark weakness, so you kind of double down there. And then Cleaver. Cleaver is a more offensive Pokemon, obviously, being rock and bug, so defensively, it's not really going to have a lot going for it. You've got that big water weakness that they share, and while, again, Cleaver can be offensively good, I don't necessarily think that they're the best pairs. When we look at Typhlosion and the nobles that it's good against, we look at noble number 3, noble number 4, and noble number 5. 5 is kind of a question mark. Like, it's not necessarily good against noble number 5, but because of its special attack stat and who the noble number 5 is, Typhlosion's able to beat it pretty easily. So we'll give it a check there. So ultimately, if you're someone who wants to play with Arcanine, maybe Typhlosion isn't the pick for you, right? But I think Typhlosion does have some good things going for it. I think if it had a status move, and maybe it does, I haven't been able to see a status move from all the data I've looked through, then maybe that changes things to make Infernal Parade a little bit stronger. But as of right now, it seems as though Decidueye might have the leg up. But let's take a look at Samurott. Now, from a design perspective, I think Samurott's the best, but that's just me. Samurott or Oshawott evolves into a water and dark type Pokemon, which is very, very strong. However, there are obviously a lot of options that kind of fit those typings as well. I think the bread and butter for Samurott is that it gets Swords Dance very early in this game to boost its attack stat. It also gets Aqua Jet to kind of make up for an average speed at 85. It has a signature move called Ceaseless Edge, which is very, very strong, and it actually creates a secondary effect to kind of chip away at the opposing Pokemon. So it's kind of almost like a Whirlpool or Wrap or whatever. So you have that kind of extra effect going on as well. So you have the residual damage from Ceaseless Edge. You have the power of using Swords Dance, Aqua Jet. You can use things like Aqua Tail as well. It has a very good attack stat at 108. I would say like above average, and a 100 base special attack stat. So it can be both physical or special, and it does have some special attacks as well, like Hydro Pump and Dark Pulse. However, I would recommend running the physical set on this with Swords Dance, Aqua Jet, Ceaseless Edge, Aqua Tail probably, or maybe some sort of coverage. It's pretty frail though. Like, its special offense is really bad. It's not gonna wanna take a lot of hits. This is an offensive Pokemon. You wanna send it in on something that can resist, set up a Swords Dance, and then deal a lot of damage. I think as a result of that, it pairs really well with Electrode, Sneasler, Zoroark, Weirdeer, and Cleaver. I think that those are all really good pairings. Obviously, you're weak to bug type, you're weak to fighting type with Samurott, so you kind of want to resist some of that stuff. You're obviously weak to electric type, right, and grass type. So I feel like Electrode's pretty solid. While there are one common weakness there, I think Electrode's really good. I think Sneasler's solid being a fighting resist. I think that has something going for it. Zoroark, obviously, being immune to those fighting type moves, being a ghost type is really big. Weirdeer, Cleaver, as I mentioned. I think it pairs okay with Arcanine. It's easy to say that these are like a perfect fit because of the fire and the the water typing, but they do share a weakness to fighting, which is something to be very mindful of. Overquill, there's some duplicate stuff going on there because they're both dark types. I think Braviary's solid, being obviously able to deal massive damage, but there are some similarities there in terms of their weaknesses. You've got Goodra. I think Goodra's really good in general, but they share a big fighting weakness, obviously. And then Ursaluna also shares that fighting weakness. And then I would not recommend pairing Samurott with Basculegion or Avalugg, as there's just too many common weaknesses between the Pokemon. I don't really think that they stack up super well, or they just have similar typings in the case of Basculegion, both being water type. When we break down the nobles that you can say it's strong against, it's good against Noble number 1, Noble number 2, Noble number 4, and Noble number 5. So when you break down what the best Pokemon is in terms of the nobles, Samurott and Decidueye are tied in that regard, but obviously all the starters have their pros and cons. So that's a comprehensive list and breakdown of every single starter that you can choose, whether it's Rowlet, Oshawott, or Cyndaquil in this game. And I will tell you guys from my experience, I think you can't go wrong, man. I think ultimately, and I'm sure people want me to make a decisive answer, ultimately I think it's best to choose the starter that you want to choose. I just wanted to give you the facts and the options here. I think you need to look at this list and look at the Pokemon you want to pair with your starter to really make the best decision for you. I think that the best starter overall is probably Samurott, if I'm being honest. I feel like the combination of being able to use Swords Dance and deal massive amounts of damage is just too good to pass. I also think there's like way too many flying type Pokemon in the region that are gonna wreck your Decidueye, which kind of gives them a leg up. And I think that Samurott kind of pairs with so many things. Like, it gives you a lot of variety and not a lot of Pokemon that you don't want to pair with. So ultimately, if I were to make a decision, I would say that I think that Samurott is the best starter in this region, and that's the one that I would recommend choosing if you're kind of on the fence between the three. I think Typhlosion is probably the worst of the 3 starters, especially considering its signature move really doesn't benefit because it doesn't really have a way to activate it, at least from what I've seen. And I think Decidueye kind of sits in the middle, but again, that 4x weak to flying is something really scary. But the Triple Arrows Leaf Blade combination is very, very strong, and I think it pairs up really nicely with a lot of Pokemon as well. So ultimately, the decision is yours. You guys can let me know in the comments section below what starter you plan to pick in Pokemon Legends Arceus. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Be sure to like the video if you did, and of course, subscribe to the channel if you guys are new so you don't miss out on our epic Pokemon Legends Arceus coverage. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.